Before we start this week's episode, I just want to make a quick shout out to our newest sponsors, Revolve Uganda. So if you're a content creator out there and you're looking for a professional looking thumbnail just like the one of this video, then do not hesitate to reach out following the link in the description. Thank you. Trevor, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
You have an interesting name, Trevor Saaka.
What's up?
Yeah, I'm good. So now, before we start today's episode, I just want to say if you've been looking at a podcast, but you lack a space where you can start from or you lack cameras, I was suggesting that you come to Affinity Media. It has, and it's not just for podcasting, it's also for other content creations. As you can see, the kitchen, they have a mini swimming pool and a balcony, so you can record your videos from here. Trevor. So today's topic is going to be artificial intelligence, but we have started a new tradition and you're going to be the pioneer guest for this one. It's an icebreaker tradition for we are going to talk about it, where I just ask you something off topic from the topic we are going to address, then we just dive into the conversation. So your icebreaker question for you will be, what's your favorite movie of all time? All time.
Damn, all time.
Yeah.
I'd say Interstellar. Yeah, directed by Christopher Nolan. It's such an interesting movie for me because it's okay. The theme of it is that it explains that love transcends space and time. So it's the love between the father and his daughter that pretty much transcends what time is, what space is, and that whole theme of that love is something that you can't really understand, but you'll be able to feel and have an experience, no matter the distance, no matter the timeline. I mean, that's kind of beautiful, and how he was able to explain it in scientific terms. I'm a huge nerd, man. So he being in that scientific aspect and the emotional aspect together was something that I really appreciated. So yeah, that's my first movie.
Okay. It's a good pick. Christopher Nolan films are brilliant. And you're the first person to say Interstellar, you don't explain it scientifically. Most people who say my favorite movie is Interstellar, they won't tell me about the black hole and everything.
Man, that's a lot of geography, man.
The emotional, which I think is also brilliant. Yeah. So now, artificial intelligence. So now, AI is it's not been new. It's been around for some time, but in Africa, it's a relatively new concept. Because if we ask our mothers for like people above the age of 30, they probably think like artificial intelligence is ChatGPT. That's it. But now, I think AI goes deeper on that, which is going to be today's episode. That's the whole point of today's episode. Now, when I was doing my research on artificial intelligence, the person split it into three. He was saying about there is large language models, the ones everyone knows, ChatGPT, Cloud, Word, all those. Then we have like agent AIs, the ones that automate systems. For example, it automates your business and stuff. I'm not quite sure about these things. It was just like research. I'm not sure what is my source, but yeah, it was research. So you're going to elaborate on this. And then the last one being agentic AI. So now, back to you is, could you give us a brief history of like 1 minute brief history of artificial intelligence, like how it came to be artificial intelligence. Then you talk about those modes of artificial intelligence, like large language models, so that for someone who does not know the concept of AI, a layman could watch this episode and go away knowing, oh yeah, this is artificial intelligence.
Okay, I guess I'll start from who I am and also my profession.
Okay.
I guess. So yeah, as you introduced, I'm Trevor Saaka. Yes, that's my real name. So I'm an electrical engineer by training. I did a bachelor's in electrical engineering, but throughout my degree, I wanted to learn more about AI, see how to utilize data in interesting ways that could be applicable in the engineering field. And yeah, I stumbled across AI I'd say by luck, essentially. So I did my internship at the place which I work at today, at Sambad AI, and that's where I got to know about artificial intelligence. So right now I'm a ML ops engineer / graduate trainee. And the history of AI pretty much goes all the way back to the 1950s. So 1950s, you have Alan Turing, who was a scientist at the time during World War II. So he was trying to create some sort of machine that was able to entangle and dismantle the German communication system, which was the Enigma. So the thing is that that communication system was encrypting and decrypting faster than they could actually understand. Okay, they could actually break down the communication. So he made a model that was able to decrypt and encrypt faster than the Germans could, and that was the first like spark of AI. He's actually in the AI field is actually known as the father of AI. But AI is just about you having, it's in the name, artificial intelligence. You trying to create intelligence through something else that is similar to human beings. So from the 1950s, you go to the 1960s and 1970s, where AI is now being integrated with like functions. So now people are trying to get machines to do complex tasks, but through functions. But now the issue is the results of those tests and that research wasn't so how can I say, appealing. So there wasn't a lot of excitement due to that. So now you find governments pulling out money from this research, and that's what's called the AI winter, because now people are realizing, okay, AI isn't that special. So then you come into the 1980s where you have expert systems. Now, expert systems are systems that are specific to their domains. So you have finance, you have health, you have these programs that are able to answer complex questions but are specific in their domains. So take, for example, if you have like an expert system in the law domain, it's able to tell you what is IP, maybe construction law, maybe financial law, maybe commercial law. And still at this time, it was mostly programs. People would actually sit down, write algorithms, and make sure that these algorithms would would be as robust as possible to bring about a certain outcome. Now, the 1990s was another winter, but not as bad as the first one. So in the 1990s, that's where you have the internet boom, and now you have this huge collection of data, but now you don't know what to do with it. So that's where you have now these researchers whereby they're looking at, oh, why don't we use data to train these models? So a model is pretty much, if you remember your math, it's like y is equals to mx plus c. So that's the simplest model you can get. So this is what these models are. So instead of you trying to program that, why don't you just get a simple model and then just put as much data as you can and see how the model is able to learn from that data. So that's where now you get this large, they call it big data. Like you have an influx of companies trying out of rather research labs and companies trying out, what if we use data to train our models, which is now how banks started being way more fine-tuned towards like their customers. You find like supermarkets, these big supermarket branches like Walmart, getting more in tune with their customers because they're getting so much data, and they're now putting it into their models and they're using it to predict what a customer would do, what sort of credit would we give a person who's attached to our bank, that kind of thing. Now the large language models came in due to the different types of AI. So AI can be broken down into machine learning, and now machine learning you have these different aspects where you have computer vision, you have the expert systems that I talked about, and then you have NLP. So that's natural language processing. So before, I would say the 2019, because that's like when they became very mainstream, you still had natural language processing, but the thing is that you wouldn't be able to do it in an efficient way. Because before then you had these neural networks. So neural networks are machines that are models that are simulated to mimic how the mind thinks. So the mind thinks using neurons. I'm going to go a bit, because AI is a field that really touches a lot of fields. So Alan Turing thought that the best machine, from the Alan Turing test, he thought that the machine, if a machine is to be a machine, then it shouldn't be thinking in a way that humans do. So I guess you could ask, what is thinking? Yeah. So thinking is your ability to remember that, okay, if you give me this input, then this means that I'm supposed to reply this. But it's a little bit more technical because you have to really understand like what is actually thinking. It's you getting an idea, understanding the information that I've given you, and then giving me something that could add on or is even better than the idea I've given you. So they tried modeling AI models similar to how the human brain thinks, and that's how you get these neural networks. You get small neurons, you send in an input, it's able to make different matches of patterns and then give you an output based on the information. So before then, when training these models to understand the pattern of language, it was very inefficient, because for you just to train a model to understand, let's say, translation, to do translation from one language to another, you'd need a lot of computational power, and two, you'd need a lot of data. But now with with the paper that Google released, attention is all you need. That's what sparked off the large language models, simply because they were able to create a mechanism whereby communication would help with these neural networks. So you don't need a lot of data per se, but you're still able to get the most out of the models in terms of how they learn the patterns, how they interact with one another, and how they're able to generate information. So that's where we are right now. We're in the place whereby the research from all these years has now, I would say, amalgamated into this. But people think that AI is just not large language models, but there's so much. You have these cases where you have companies that have robotics. I don't know if you've seen companies whereby they're now putting robots into people's houses to have them as like butlers or something like that. That's another branch of AI. You also have computer vision, helping models see what human beings see. So it's a very large branch. It's just that this is the most mainstream and easily accessible use case of AI.
Yeah. I think that was a brilliant breakdown. So now you raised some good points that I want us to tackle. So you raised the first question that Alan Turing posed to himself when he was trying to create artificial intelligence was, can machines think? Now I want to know, like, you in the field, AI engineering, what do you think about? Did he answer that question? Did he prove that machines can think as good as humans?
Well, you have to understand what his test essentially started with, because he was saying that, okay, at that time they were using teleprompters to interact with machines. So he was saying that if you're to have a conversation with a machine and you keep having that conversation, the moment you feel that this isn't a human being, then it has failed the test. So now you can even have that sort of Turing test, your own personal Turing test with ChatGPT, whereby you can interact with it and be like, oh, is this actually a machine? And sometimes I actually just test it out. I just like send like messages to my friends and be like, is this something you think I'd write? And some of my friends, like they pick up, they didn't actually know how I write and how I actually text. They actually know the nuances I have and be like, oh no, this is not something you'd write. And other times it's like, oh, this is actually something you would write. So can machines think? Machines can learn, but thinking is you having your own like base of what you're creating. Machines don't have that. They can learn, definitely, at a very large scale, way larger than humans, but they can't have that aspect of creativity whereby if I'm to teach you something, you can make something of your own, something completely different from what I taught you. I don't know what does that answer your question properly?
Yeah. To an extent. So what you're saying is that machines can mimic human thought processes, but can't really think as a human being because they lack creativity.
Yeah, essentially, because they're shells, I would say. We're just giving what we know as human beings to a shell and hoping that it can copy what we've already experienced. I mean, you could also argue that, okay, don't we have the same experience when we're living day-to-day life? That, okay, if I walk in the park and I get some sort of feeling that, oh, this is the code that I need to write today. I get some euphoric feeling that, oh, because I've worked in the park, I've gotten inspiration. But it's not the same with models, because you're just saying that this is what you have to learn, this is what you have to copy, this is what you have to mimic. It will never get any sort of other experience from that data set unless you introduce something else.
And that's where I held my kind of biases as well. And I'm not saying I'm correct, but I just want to wrestle this out with you. So now we are saying that it's more of the data is being fed, right, to the artificial intelligence, that you feed it specific sets of data and it can only reproduce information that you're fed it in just more intelligent formats than any other machine had ever been able to do.
Exactly.
But now what I'm saying is that when I was doing a dissertation on artificial intelligence, for example, in relation to my field of study, intellectual property in law, one of the criteria we follow to not give artificial intelligence the right authorship, essentially this means that if I wrote a book using artificial intelligence or composed a song using artificial intelligence, then I'm the owner to that song. You get, like, I don't need to recognize artificial intelligence at all. But I found that kind of intriguing and very, I think not up to date, because I feel like though artificial intelligence generates information is the same way as human beings generate information. Now, just hear me out, because I feel like that sounds a bit outrageous, but when I was doing the research, I realized that machines generate through like machine learning experiences that the data is being fed. But then when I was doing my research, there is one of these textbooks, I think it's Jean-Paul Sartre, old philosopher. He was saying that essentially we are largely unconscious beings. Most of our life happens unconsciously, right? Then, and everything we produce, we learn about ourselves through other people. And everything we produce is just a lived experience of the books we have read, the songs we have listened to, the people we have met, the environment we have been raised in, that kind of thing. So now I'm saying, if you reproduce information according to that manner, it kind of negates the whole aspect of free will. And if we are to argue that humans have little to no free will, it's the same thing as machines because they also have little to no free will. They're going to reproduce data that they have studied. Same thing with you. If I asked you about let me say you've known that history at all and you've never out of your own accord went to read about history and asked you about the Holocaust, you would be able to submit about the Holocaust. You'd be like, Kelly, go research about that, right? And then you can make a submission in a different format. Can be like, oh, the Holocaust was this and this. Something with AI. If I did feed it data about the Holocaust, it would be able to submit on that specific piece of information. So now I'm saying that we are also creative. For example, let me say I study music and I study beats and tunes. Then I compose a song in Luganda, even though I didn't study that I didn't study the music in Luganda. Even that used my creativity. But simply with AI, it has studied the Holocaust, but I can tell it, write for me a fictional novel based off these characters, obviously with a lot of prompt engineering and stuff. And it would produce something a little bit synonymous with what a human being could have produced. Or even sometimes people argue better. So now I just wanted to know, what do you think about that? Because in that dissertation, I didn't conclude, I left it hanging. I just say that we need to rethink our laws. We just need to update our laws and kind of not turn a blind eye to this thing because it's coming and it's not stopping. So us saying that, we shall not recognize AI, how long are we going to do that? Then I'm not saying that AI indeed can think. I just want to get your opinion on this thing because I also left it hanging. It was kind of in the gray. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In my perspective, I would agree and disagree. I disagree in the sense that you can't exactly use AI as you can't really coin AI as an entity. You can sort of say it's a tool. Let me give this example. We all did math, right? And we all had calculators. Now the funny thing about the calculator is that when it was coming out as a tool to be used for mathematicians, I call them the OG mathematicians were saying, oh, we shouldn't be introducing calculators. They'll make math too easy for people to learn. People want to learn the fundamentals. And they were sort of right, because back then, before people had calculators, people would actually cram these tables. I don't know if you remember those tables, like every value of those tables. Like you're probably asking what is sine of 36, and the guy will know it, right? But now, what sine of 36, you can easily just type in a calculator and get the answer. You don't have to remember the whole tables. But it's a tool that's supposed to help you do your job at a more efficient rate. It's supposed to help you do things faster. It's supposed to help you understand things faster, because the nitty-gritties of you going through, let's say, for example, if I'm writing an essay, as long as I have the structure of what I want to write, and as long as I know what I want to write in it, I don't have to write it from scratch. I can just tell, AI, this is the essay I want to write, this is what I want to do. I'm a huge advocate for it. This is what I want to do, this is how I want it to sound, this is how I want it to sound like, and then I start writing it. But before it was able to start generating, it needed inspiration, a spark. And that spark was given by me. Vis-a-vis human beings, if I'm to tell you, if you're to go into the world and experience people, experience places, experience nature, yes, it will give you inspiration, but that inspiration is turned into a different output. My argument is that yes, we both need data, but now the data for AI is that if you give it data it has never seen, it won't give you something that you expect. But with human beings, even if you're giving us something that we haven't seen, we're still able to turn that input into something that's actually useful, that actually makes sense. I mean, there's this term that's in the AI space, hallucinations, whereby AI gives you wrong information in a confident manner, right? But that's not the same with human beings. We don't give wrong information in a confident manner. We give information that we have experienced, and we provide it based on our experience. That's the difference. I mean, the argument you're saying that, okay, this conversation that we're having today, right? After this, my mind is going to change because you've told me that, okay, why shouldn't we consider AI as an entity that actually generates its own information? But like, where's that information coming from? Recently, actually, when people were generating these images that were similar to anime studio, it's called Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli was like, no, you can't do that because we have dedicated our time and effort to creating this art. And now, yes, it is creating pictures in an instant, but that information, I mean, that creativity has to be outsourced, especially if someone has created it. If someone has taken time to own and what's the word? And perfect their craft. And like, I mean, inspiration is everywhere, but like in terms of AI, is that you're sort of just giving it something and you want it to replicate it. You don't want it to create. I guess that's the difference.
Okay, makes sense. Actually, now that you've said it I think this is a bit about conversations because it's like a faking process, right? It's really like speaking in its true form. I know I won't get into that, but when you said that, I remembered something because I was reading Federico Fagen. He's a philosopher in quantum physics, and he was talking about something in the line of what you just said about, let me say, calculators, how they make us not understand math in a way. Okay, that claim that they make us less sharp in math. So one of his claims were that, let me say, for example, they compare us to artificial intelligence and not as human beings. But then he was like, artificial intelligence cannot be like us. And that's one of his claims. And I think it's credible because he was like, most of the things we are trying to explain, for example, people, if I was Peter Desk example, for example, scientists are trying to explain consciousness using mathematics and physics. Then he was like, that's not possible because consciousness created mathematics. So you can't use mathematics again to explain consciousness. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
For example, what you see when you use a calculator, you can't use it to explain, let me say, a fundamental aspect because the only reason why you are aware, the only reason why you can make sense of those numbers is because you're conscious. You can look at the number 2 + 2 = 4 and you're conscious that that's the answer. But a machine wouldn't be conscious that 2 + 2 is 4 and maybe I'm going to use it here. But it just knows that 2 + 2, if I'm to use the data that have been fed about numerics, it should equal to 4.
Yeah, because the inspiration came from someone else. I feel like math is the language that humans use to understand.
So yeah, if you bring it in that perspective, then I guess we can have a strong argument as humans. Then you raise another point, still at that same point of calculators being known. Like, for example, you realize that people who grew up, like in our era, when we grew up without chat and the internet was just starting out, you realize that we had to cram those tables as one of those people. And teachers would ask you, and perhaps train you if you didn't have the tables. But now that students can access, because I find my siblings using calculators as low as the age of like 10, they're already using a calculator. Then you realize that if I ask them quick math questions, they can't answer. Like if I say 12 times 12, they'll be like, because they're used to typing their calculator. Then now I'm what related to AI in a way that Dr. Is it Andrew Huberman was saying about your plasticity in brains, right? We're saying that it's like muscle training. Like if you went to the gym consistently for 7 days and then you build some muscle, then you continue for another 7 years, that muscle shows. But after 7 years, if I pause for another 2 years, then the muscle goes back. So it's like I have to, keep lifting so that my muscles grow. And once I stop, the muscles go back. Something with our brains. We're saying if you stop using your brain for a certain aspect of your life, then your brain will assume it no longer needs that aspect for survival. You get? So let me say we used to cram these numbers. Now that we're using, let me say, calculators, your brain no longer finds the need of cramming the numbers because it's like we have an easier solution because according to evolutionary biology, our brains were made to make us feel safe and to get us quicker results. Yeah, that's why if you said you're going to go to the gym, your brain will probably convince you, let's watch a video about gym, except we have enough information about going to the gym. Eventually, you end up going to the gym because of that whole perspective or that whole idea that brains are meant to get quicker solutions. So if it knows it can get a quick solution from a calculator, then it won't be active enough to give it a solution. Now, what am I saying here? Is that we are seeing ChatGPT incorporated into tutoring, like for fundamental aspects, because I've seen my siblings use it for like science questions, mathematics questions. You can just take a picture of like your homework and it will solve it for you. So did you think that causes a threat to like the humankind? in a manner, because if we keep relying on ChatGPT to give us quick solutions to answers, then our brain will assume we no longer need that cramming capacity or that understanding capacity, because either way it knows if I'm stuck, I have someone to get that information from in an easy way. What do you think about that?
I mean, you have to understand how these large language models work under the hood a little bit, and at least I would say I have the privilege, or at least the exposure to see that. So I, let's just like go back to the whole data. So these models don't actually think, and I'm going to build it up in such a way that I reach to answering your question. So they don't actually think. Let me give an example. So remember when you were a kid, they would teach you how to solve algebra, and they'll show you that, oh, these are the steps. And to make sure that they knew that you understood the steps, even in examinations or quizzes, they'll show you working. But don't forget that working was shown to you already. So it's just like a cramming thing in like a cramming mechanism in your head that you have to do. Okay, I remember the teacher said that here you have to do x minus 2, then take 2 to the other side, and then show your answer and underline. Like that whole thing. So same thing with AI. We don't really teach it how to think. We just show it, okay, if someone is asked you a question and okay, there's this reasoning element that they put into it, and if someone wants to see the reasoning behind your why you came to this conclusion, show it this. But that has been trained. They have literally trained these models on how to reason. So really the reasoning still comes back from humans. Going to now helping an individual with their task is that you want to use your brain more for creative things, not for mundane things. So if you're able to use these models to help you explain, as long as you have the bigger picture, and you're able to use these models to help you just do the mundane work, and then your critical thinking or your creative aspects come at the end of the project, whereby you take out what you don't need, you put together what you actually want, and then put that out as a product. I feel like this is the best time to be a builder. It's like, I watched the video the other day. It was talking about how this is a new Renaissance period. Because now, what the industrial age did for us, for human beings, was that it forced us to specialize. You no longer find the likes of like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci in the modern day. I mean, you have a few outliers like the likes of Steve Jobs or like Elon Musk, or even if you come to Uganda, you could probably say, okay, I look at some politicians like people who work in the government spaces, Dr. Amina Zawade, the likes of maybe even Bobby Wine, artist and politician, right? You find a few people who understand the dynamics of being not just in your lane, but also having sort of like a generalization in all the aspects of life. You don't have those anymore because people say that, okay, once you become a lawyer, you should only be a lawyer. You shouldn't even think about engineering, or you shouldn't even think about this other aspect. You shouldn't think about this other aspect. You know what I mean? That's what AI is here for. It's able to help you not have to have those generalizations. So yeah, you ask your siblings, what's 12 times 12? They won't know that. But in the bigger scheme of things, does he really need to know that if he's maybe building a computer program to help him with doing his homework? You know, you don't need to know all the mundane things to get to understand the solutions. But if something is able to help you understand the bigger picture of the problem that you're solving, then it should be there. It should help you. I guess I understand where your sentiments come in terms of you're going to have a lot of cases of people not wanting to think, not wanting to actually apply their critical thinking skills because let me use AI for it, let me ChatGPT it. But that's not what it's there for. It's supposed to help you solve your problems a little bit quicker, and you use your critical thinking skills to the maximum. There's actually there's a podcast I watched about how Jeff Bezos like spends his day. So he pretty much says like the first 4 hours of the day, he wakes up at 5. First 4 hours of the day, he's pretty much doing his personal things, like the family, goes on a jog, and does whatever he needs to do. But then him as a CEO, he realizes that he's paid to think. As human beings, our sole purpose is to think, and to think about hard problems. later in the day, he has about 5 meetings, but in those 5 meetings, he is tasked to make sure that his thinking capacity is tuned all the way up, and he's actually giving the best solutions. So same thing is that if I know that I'm creating a model, if I know I'm creating a system, and this is what we should actually be doing as human beings, analyzing systems, knowing how to create systems. Why should I focus on the mundane parts? Why shouldn't I not focus on the bigger picture? Creativity is going to skyrocket because of this.
I think I love that you raised that, because then I was also reading a research study that was saying that, you know how these revolutions happen? We have the industrial revolution, the sexual revolution and stuff, and then it changes the natural order of the world, like the way things operate and they're supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I was reading a study that was saying that, for example, when the industrial revolution came, most people were still in denial. Like they were like, oh, let me say you've been practicing a skill like tailoring, and you do your clothes manually, you sew manually, or maybe you're practicing a skill like, let me say you're a cobbler and you use like your hands and those large needles and stuff. You got so good at that skill, and that's what people paid you for. Like, for example, back in the day, you would know like, oh, if you want a cobbler, there is this one, there is this one, there is this one. If you want a tailor, there is this and this and this and this. Now, industrial revolution came and it created machines. So making these skills now what? Useless in a manner. So now they are saying that if you want to tailor your cloth, just use a machine. Learn how to use the machine instead of learning how to use the needle and your bare hands, because it's no longer important. And hence the result of the industrial revolution created very many more rich people. Even though it widened the gap between the rich and the poor, it also created what? So many rich people. If you had an opportunity, for example, if you were selling 5 clothes a day because that's all you could do, now you have a machine, you could literally sell 100.
Yeah.
Now we are seeing the AI revolution coming very soon. And now
it's actually here, man.
it's here. Now, but people are not talking about it enough. That's what I'm saying. Like, I love that you talked about that in the grand scheme of things. Let's look at the bigger picture. But then we are known to be thinking AI is something that maybe I've seen people text AI, how are you? And the replies, I'm fine. Like, then they're like, how was your day? It was also okay. Can I give you a name? I'm Joe, I'm John. And then they do the capability of where they could get with that artificial intelligence. Because for them, they look at it as a mainstream media thing that I can just talk to, and it's kind of absurd. So what I wanted you to talk about is that now let me say we have the power to leverage such a thing, artificial intelligence. And then a study I saw that was saying that the artificial intelligence is going to double the amount of millionaires the world race more than the industrial revolution. Okay. Like, let me say the industrial revolution made, let me say, hypothetically speaking, like 100 millionaires. So they're saying AI is going to double that, because it's going to give most people the opportunity to leverage certain creativity skills or whatever skills they have in order to produce an income out of that. But the only way that would happen is if you have knowledge about this thing of how can I leverage AI to like get incomes, maybe start a company, maybe become rich. Because if the industrial revolution passes you by, then you've lost. Like, for example, if the industrial revolution, the way it passed people by, they lost because probably some became broke, but some became rich. Same thing. Let me use like a simple analogy to like try and bring this question to life. For example, a while back I saw a tweet. I think I told you about this. I saw a tweet by Samson Kasumba, and he was like, back in his day, before he started journalism, when he was just starting out fresh out of the university, he said that he used to walk around Nali and Tinder and Chireka, those areas, and there were bushes, like literal bushes. And then he's like, it's now 2025, and like 100 by 100 in Tinder right now is probably like you could go up to a bill.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And he said in his time it was as low as probably 20 mil. You get, and it's like, if I had bought the land back then, right now I would be worth 1 billion. And that's so crazy. Because the literal pushes, but now in Ugandan can testify that if they walk through Tinder, it's so industrialized. And now that's what I want to ask you. Like, how can the youth or the old people, whatever age bracket, how can they leverage AI to be able to tap into these opportunities before they pass them by?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with technology. I mean, it's supposed to create more opportunities. No, there's this quote I love. Opportunity is usually dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. That's why most people don't take it. So, I mean, you can usually give people the steps they need or like the information, but it's up to them to put on the overalls and actually do the hard work. I mean, I usually try to tell, this is actually one thing I actually tell my friends, like, yo, learn to code, learn to at least understand what AI is. Even if you don't learn to code, at least understand what AI is actually bringing to the table. I mean, the Industrial Revolution is an example of that. The second is when computers became personal. That's like around the 1980s, 1960s. Yeah, 1960s, 1980s. That's where you now have the likes of Bill Gates. People don't understand the story of Bill Gates so well because they don't understand that he was able to utilize the fact that personal computers became public. AI used to be something that was strictly gated for companies. It was a commercial thing. You would not find a normal person interacting with AI, but now you have it on your fingertips. It has become commercialized. How to leverage that? You just have to understand your domain. You don't have to learn everything, but you just have to understand your domain. So, take for example, if you're a lawyer, I'll use actually your example. If you're a lawyer, how would you want to make AI remove all the mundane tasks? Think of the bigger picture, because you want to make sure that I still want to practice my craft, what I'm actually building as an individual in my domain, but I don't want AI to make it. I want AI to have its how can I call it? Its fingers in my work. Actually, I have a law friend who uses AI in the most creative ways. So he actually taught me how to use ChatGPT in the most creative way. So ChatGPT actually has this option whereby you're able to save a prompt. So in that prompt, where you're able to save your prompts. So like they call them system prompts. So you pretty much give AI roles, you can give AI tasks, you can give AI like sort of guidelines on how to interact. So he gave AI that, okay, whenever I'm interacting with you, one, learn the way I write. Two, always ask twice about the information you're providing with me, and always double check. And three, I forgot. Okay, always check these websites. Yeah, always check this, because he has like some sort of like a framework of websites he checks when he's like cross-checking his works, because he writes a lot of contracts and legal documents. And he's able to. He told me before ChatGPT he would get like through writing these legal contracts, like he'd get like 5 a week, but now he's able to do 20 in a week.
Yeah, that's amazing.
His work rate quadrupled. So you can, like, you're telling me that you're trying to compete as a lawyer with someone who understands how to use this tool, yet you're like, no, I'm going to keep the old methods. Yes, there will be laggards, but the early adopters will always be the people who understand how the technology works and how they're able to utilize it. Like, the funniest thing is that they actually, I remember I saw billionaires, the youngest billionaires coming out of Silicon Valley at the age of 20. They beat Max Zuckerberg, who became a billionaire at 22, 23. And it's because of AI. And the thing is that they're making the most simple solutions, because like their solution was an app that allows you to apply for job applications using AI. So pretty much AI takes your CV, creates a sort of like document that's able to send out to all these firms, and depending on the different like places that you're sending to, it's able to customize it. So you can imagine, like, you have a person who's able to use this tool to apply to 30,000 jobs in like a week, and you're still using old methods. But again, this is an example. So it's about, you don't have to learn everything, because it's a very wide field, unless you feel like you're truly invested and you're truly interested in knowing what artificial intelligence is. But understand your domain, understand where the mundane tasks are, and then look at, okay, if I'm to apply AI in this mundane task, will it actually make my work rate? Will it double my work rate? Will it triple my work rate? I mean, and it's also not about using AI in everything, because every single person I talk to, because I go to my company sends me to a lot of conferences, and you find people saying, "Oh, I need AI for this, I need AI for that, I need AI for this," but I'm like, but you haven't understood the process. You haven't understood the system that is actually deployed at your workplace. I mean, I had a person telling me that, oh, I need AI to tell me when the water levels are dropped in a certain area. But I'm like, no, that's just engineering. Get a sensor, put it in a well. Whenever the water levels drop, you know there's no water. If it rises, that's it. You don't need AI for that. And like in the future, it's not about, because AI is going to become something that's just everywhere. In the future, it won't be about where can I use AI. It will be where can I not use AI, because that's where now the niche will be. So it's just about understanding the tool, understanding what the tool can provide, and then understanding when you don't need the tool.
Yeah, I get, yeah. And it's crazy because of recent, like 2 weeks ago, I was trying to build a personal website. Then I checked online for like people I could hire for that personal website. Then the prices were outrageous. I was seeing $1,000. The lowest was around like 1.5 to Ghana shillings, like a proper website. And I was like, but can't I do this thing myself? So I go to ChatGPT, I give it my prompt because I have like 16 prompts up, like your friend, like I already set up. I get it to prompt itself. So once I get the final prompt, then I prompt it finally. So it told me that I could use Replit. It was my first time hearing about Replit and Lovable. I'm like, let it go and try these things. So they have like a free trial. So I put in Replit what I wanted, like in actual English. I say, I want this website. I got that prompt from ChatGPT. Like I was like, how do I prompt Replit to get what I want? Then it asks you a few questions. Then you put that in Replit. So Replit does that in like under 1 minute, and it shows you that live code happening. Like the code people would take like, let me say, months to do. It shows it live happening, and the website is produced immediately. And it's a very good website, by the way, better than some of the professional websites. Then I was like, wow, this is interesting. So I wanted to like download it, though it needed like me to now subscribe for a thing, and I didn't have the money to subscribe for it. But still, the point is that was impressive. Like the fact it did that in 1 minute, I had a personal website. And I feel like these are opportunities that are being slept on.
Yeah, English.
In artificial intelligence space.
English is the new programming language, bro.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's what I like to say. Like you no longer need to know like the syntaxes or like the technical coding aspects. As long as you have like your idea, English is now the new programming language.
Yeah, English is a new programming language. Yeah. Now, you talked about data earlier. I just thought I'll bring it up now. You talked about that artificial intelligence uses a lot of data to run, and then also a lot of power at the same time. Because when I was reading something scientific still about artificial intelligence, and the guy was like, these people was trying to criticize people who like use ChatGPT for mundane and day-to-day purposes. Like, for example, say, oh, ChatGPT, how are you? What's your name? Then he was like, just that message, how are you, ChatGPT? That it has to send it to its servers and somewhere in North California. I don't remember the details, but it seemed that he was trying to say that it uses a lot of energy to generate a reply to your saying like, oh, I'm fine. How about you?
Yeah.
You get now. That's what I wanted to expound on. Like you to expound on. Isn't this a threat to the environment? Because we're already fighting climate crises like the global warming and stuff, and now we have ChatGPT using a lot of power. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a big issue. And looking at it from like compliance and regulatory aspects, bro, it's going to really kill the environment, man. It's gonna because there's a stat I saw the other day. The running training. So you can train these models, and you need a lot of compute power. So this compute power has to be generated by, of course, like power plants. And you have to understand like that AI is, how can I say, resides in data centers. So you pretty much have these AI models being run on these like huge like machines or servers, and as you're running these servers, you have to have like a cooling system to make sure it doesn't overheat. Because now if you overheat, then you got to have your chips like burning out, and then that's going to be like time wasted to have to replace those chips. And on top of that, if we still go way farther back from the data centers to the power plants, you have to be producing a huge amount of power. So now the stat was saying that just training GPT-3, so like right now we're like GPT 5.1, just training GPT-3 alone, the amount of power was like 1.6 million gigawatts of energy. And that's equivalent to about 112 cars running.
112 cars.
Running for a full year. So now it's actually estimated by the year 2027, the amount of energy just to run AI models is going to be equivalent to you running power for a whole year in the Netherlands, like the whole country itself. So yeah, it's definitely something that you have to think about, like systematically. Like, okay, if I'm putting up a data center, where am I going to get the power from? And even if I'm getting that power from, am I doing it in a environmentally friendly way? I mean, the Chinese are doing it well because they have renewable energies. At least they're trying to make a sort of like ecosystem. And also, we're actually doing the same in Africa. We know we're mostly focusing on renewable energy sources, not nuclear energy or burning coal, something that actually pollutes the environment. Or also in Scandinavian countries, or like in Germany, whereby they actually construct their data centers in places that are really cold, or like specific Scandinavian countries, they construct the data centers closer to the Arctic to make sure they don't have to worry about cooling. And then for Germany, what they do is that they construct the data centers underground, and then the heat that's generated, they use it and supply it to the citizens. So as a heating system. So that's sort of like the idea you have to get when you're constructing these data centers, or when you're constructing these spaces to harbor these AI systems. They are power hungry and data hungry entities, and we have to be aware of that. Because if we aren't, then we're going to creating something. Yes, that's a tool, but at what cost? You can't build a house on top of a swamp, because you're building a nice house, but where's the water going to pass?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Then AI agents. It's been moving around a lot. People want agents, and it's taking off rapidly in like the Western countries, USA, Britain. Very many people are becoming millionaires from them. Or what are AI agents precisely for like someone who wants to like start one?
So an agent, you have to understand what an agent is. So okay, the first, I guess the first time the agent was coined was in the 1970s, whereby they were trying to say that an agent is a intelligent system that understands its surroundings. Okay, it's sort of like environment, and understands what its capabilities within that environment. Right. So an agent is pretty much an entity that has tools to be able to complete a task that has been given. And it knows that, okay, if I have access to these tools or access to this information, then I'll be able to perform this task to the best of my capabilities in my environment. But now the thing about agents is that you have to know when to use them. As I said earlier before, it's not about it's not about you using AI. It's about you knowing when not to use it. Because that's kind of like the key factor, or the key metric that helps you understand how these tools work. So pretty much the agent is an LLM as the brain, but now you've provided it with tools. So tools I can say like are the hands and legs of the large language model. So take for example, the best example of a tool I can give is that the web search tool. When you tell the large language model ChatGPT, search the web for this information. Essentially, all these things, all these ChatGPTs, they're just generated models. So they don't really think, but when you prompt them, they will give generation. They will generate whatever, as long as they need to answer the question, they will generate. But to make sure to reduce the levels of hallucination, or the levels of it lying to you, you're providing the tools. So you using an agent, you have to understand that, okay, if I'm going to provide this LLM with tools, what do I want as the outcome? Because on top, if you're giving it tools, it's like me telling you, Joel, I want you to write for me a contract about or write me an amendment about this. It's going to take some time. It's the same thing with agents. They're going to take some time. So if you're to utilize an agent, you have to understand, am I deploying it for accuracy at the cost of efficiency, or at the cost of time? Or am I deploying it because it's just the new hot cake on the block? So yeah, that's advice I give to people who want to go into agents. It's a very useful tool, but you have to know when to use it.
Okay. Then Elon Musk released that article saying that advanced general intelligence will be here by 2029, which is quite earlier than most scientists had anticipated it to be. And it's going to be such a significant shift in the way we understand artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But one of the most threats it causes is that it will take over so many jobs. So do you think that's a credible threat? Should we be worried as Africans that once advanced general intelligence is here, we're done to lose most of our jobs?
I mean, again, you have to look at how like AI works. It's in simple terms, it's just an entity that takes in input, spews it out. So it's just generating. Where people see the fear in it is that, okay, at least where I see the fear in it in terms of the technical aspect is that we don't fully understand how you get those outputs sometimes, because you can prompt it, but then it's very unpredictable, and the explainability of that is quite hard, because now if you're trying to tell like your boss, this is what the large language model gave me, how do you explain why it gave you that? I mean, AGI is, I would say, is quite far off. I mean, it will happen, but it's quite far off. I don't think it's close, because working with these models, training the models, they're not as big as people think they are. They are impressive, but not that impressive. Because what you're pretty much saying is that AGI will be able to continuously learn, which is something that human beings have. That's one thing. I guess that's the biggest separator between humans and AI, is ability to continuously learn. Because I can tell you, Joel, like, okay, I want you to learn this, and you probably learn it. But then on top of that, you keep learning about it, because that, as a human being, that's like your gift, or that's like your special aspect about you. You have continued learning. With LLMs, you can't continuously teach them, because there's a technical term called catastrophic forgetting. So you can only train it on a certain amount of data. Okay, or not a certain amount, like a certain size of data, before it starts forgetting what it has already learned.
Okay. Then so many people are very skeptical, even those who know about AI. Now, this is not about ignorance. We have people who are knowledgeable about artificial intelligence, at least the basic models and how they operate. But then they're also skeptical in using it for their professionalized, because of something called hallucinations and AI biases. I want you to expound on that. How credible is artificial intelligence?
No, it's what I was explaining before, like the explainability. So that's the biggest fear of where you have these people saying that, oh, AI is going to take over and everything, because you're really not sure about how AI gets certain answers.
Yeah.
The hallucinations come about because without fail, it has to generate something. It's supposed to predict the next word, predict the next sentence, predict the next whatever it's supposed to predict. If you don't understand how it's making those predictions, then that becomes a problem, and becomes something very shunned upon, because you don't want something that you don't understand. But if you understand, at least that's what some of these companies are trying to do, is to have some sort of explainability, whereby at least you're able to track where and from what point are you getting these generations, which I find quite interesting. So yeah.
So now, I think it was brilliant. I think you shared knowledge on most of the fundamental aspects about artificial intelligence, and I'll attach resources in this video for those who want to learn more about artificial intelligence, because as a concept, it's quite wide. There is a lot you need to learn about how it's the supervised learning, unsupervised learning, all that, then how it operates still, and, the revolution. You said it's already happening, but yeah, and how it's going to take off, and how to position yourself in a manner that you will still survive the revolution, really. So now, Godfrey Hinton was talking about regulation of AI when you appeared on there, CEO, the good father of AI. Yeah. And he said, when that question of, will AI take your job? And I want to quote him directly, he was like, AI won't take your job. It's humans who can't use AI that AI will take. So what he's essentially saying that if you're doing your job in that normal kind of sense, that, let me say your job was to draft contracts, like he said that AI can draft contracts, but it won't necessarily take your job if you're someone who knows how to use AI. For example, like your friend who drafts 20 contracts in a week. Yeah, because people still need human beings to verify certain things. Something with people who are scared of software engineering and coding, or maybe anything and stuff, still people will need humans for that creativity aspect. So it was like, just on your on your expertise skills or professional skills, just include artificial intelligence learning, just that you position yourself to be someone like competent or formidable, not to be replaced by a machine. But he's saying, however, if you know nothing about artificial intelligence, then yeah, there's a high probability that AI will take your job. Then about the regulation of AI and the entire thing, I want to end with this quote from Jurassic Park. It says that you spent so much time pondering on whether you can do it, and never did you stop to ask whether you should. And I think, yeah, I don't know if we created AI for our own amusement or anything. I don't know. I really don't know what goes through people's heads when they make certain things. But people are scared that AI may be, there's so many so many hypotheses that people are coming up with, that maybe it will cause the World War III, maybe it will destroy human beings, because if it's not aligned with human values, then maybe it could kill off human beings. Like that example where the AI was being uploaded, was trying to be deleted, then it backed up itself on a different server, which wasn't part of its training. And I think that's crazy. So you're saying, what if it came down to it and artificial intelligence is misaligned with human values as we know them, then there's a probability that maybe it could lead to human extinction, which I also find the arguments are still in the gray, really. So yeah, thank you, Trevor, for coming and for teaching people about artificial intelligence as something they should really try to encounter and wrestle with as well.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's a pleasure.
Hell yeah.